Good morning or afternoon, I guess it is now, and welcome to the Missouri SBDC webinar on on how to fill out a quad chart, and also about how to conduct or what to do at your one-on-one meeting with agency personnel. And we are going to record this, so I'd like you to hold your questions until the end, and then that way none of you get picked up on the recording. We'll stop it before Q&A, but then we'll have plenty of time to answer all your questions. So I'm Sally Williams. I'm a technology and commercialization specialist with the Missouri SBDC at our center at UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City. And so I've been with the SBDC for about 5 years. And before that, I spent more than 30 years in technology development, new product development, business management, senior management with 5 Fortune 500 companies. So I've spent a lot of time in product development and commercialization. And I specialize in helping clients to apply, develop their proposals, and then actually after they get, because we've had quite a few success stories getting SBIRs, to actually navigate, get their research done, look at the business implications of that, and successfully develop and grow their businesses. So that's what we want to do to help you here today. So we'll start out, and like I said, we emailed you the slides, so you should be able to get a great. All right, so we're going to do a quick overview on SBIR, STTR, and what it is. So if you're familiar with it, we'll just take a few minutes. Don't think that it'll be too redundant. And then we're going to talk about these quad charts. You know, what is a quad chart? Why do you need one? And how do you complete it for your venture? And we're going to talk more about the one-on-one meeting with the agency representative. You know, what's the etiquette? Because there is some etiquette with it. The purpose is to get feedback, but how do you do that? And what are some questions that you should ask while you're in the meeting? And then I've got listed some additional information and assistance for you, some websites and resources that can help you in getting your quad chart ready and preparing for the one-on-one meeting, and also just in terms of applying for an SBIR or STTR grant. And then, like I said, we will stop the recording and have questions and answers. So first of all, the SBIR program began in 1982. It was enacted by Congress, so there's a congressional law that allocates the money in the budget. And the purpose of the SBIR and STTR programs, and I should say, I'm just going to say SBIR, but 99% of the time I will mean both. If there's something different for STTR, then I'll say that, okay? But it's just easier to say just one as we're talking. The purpose is to stimulate technological innovation and to meet federal R&D needs. You know, so the federal government has the largest R&D budget, research and development budget in the world, actually. And so they need to be able to conduct research on all kinds of different things. Virtually every agency of the federal government has R&D spending of some kind. So the purpose is to set aside funds for small businesses to be able to participate in this R&D effort, because certainly the government hires big companies to do their R&D work or participates with them in R&D work a lot. So this is a set aside, think of it that way, to use small businesses for research and development. And that's also with the knowledge that much of our true really different and new innovative thinking is in small businesses, right? It's in startups. It's much more difficult to innovate if you're in a large company. So they want to take advantage and get new inventors involved in government research. And it's also to foster the participation of disadvantaged firms in technology innovation. So if you are located in a hub zone, if you are minority owned, women owned, if you're a disabled veteran, all those groups, you actually have a priority of being funded by an SBIR or an STTR grant. And when you do an application, fill out an application, there are spaces where you note that, and you want to make sure and note that on your application if you're in one of those groups, because again, you get priority in being selected for an SBIR grant. And then the other thing is to increase private sector commercialization of R&D. You know, so we've all heard those stories, you know, on the news of, you know, some federal grant that spent $500,000 to study, you know, how quickly a cauliflower grows or whatever. So a lot of people think that the federal R&D a lot of times does not result in a lot of business or a lot of anything that's commercializable. And so this is part of an effort to do that. So the important thing to remember as you approach your SBIR or STTR application is this is all about commercialization, right? So this is not basic research for the purpose of learning like you do in academia or you do in some research organizations, right? This is research with a stated outcome, which is to start a business and commercialize and sell your product or service that you sell your technology. So SBIR and STTR programs have a few criteria of which there are no exceptions. First of all, it must be from an organization, the application must be from an organization of no more than 500 employees. That's different than the way the Small Business Administration classifies small businesses, which is primarily about revenue. There is no revenue limit. If you are from an organization that's small, but you have a lot of revenue, for example, I know of an organization here in Kansas City that has $1 billion in revenue, but they only have about 75 employees. So they are able to apply for an SBIR grant, okay? Because it's all about the number of employees. Secondly, it must be for profit. Nonprofits are not eligible. The most important thing is innovation. So what they're looking for is innovative technology. And by innovative, they are really talking leading edge, paradigm shifting, something that does not exist today, or if it is improving on current technology, that it's not just a step above, that it's really a leap above where we are today. What they are looking for are things that are really cutting edge, new and different. In fact, I've had a client who did not receive SBIR funding because the viewpoint was that while their idea was new, it was what they call incremental innovation, meaning just a step above what was currently available and something that most people who were scientists in that area would have thought of. It must be about research. So even though we talk about this has to be commercialized, what the SBIR and STTR funds are used for is to pay for research, okay? So they won't pay for marketing funds. They won't pay for you to hire attorneys. They won't pay for you to you know, get a human resources person. They won't pay for most market research. They won't pay for printing and advertising and things like that, okay? In fact, they won't even pay for your patent fees. It's all about the research portion. But think of it this way. If you already have some funding for your business, then use that on those other needs and use SBIR funding for your research. Must be 51% owned by US citizens or legally admitted permanent resident aliens. So that means green card, if you have a green card. I will say, because I've run across this a number of times, if someone is from out of the country and is here on a student visa, you are not eligible. In fact, you don't even want to apply because you could lose your visa if you tried to get money from the SBIR program. So again, if you are from out of the country, you must be a resident status to be able to apply for an SBIR grant. Now, you can hire with the grant funds, you can hire people that may be here on other kinds of visas. Again, if you're hiring students, remember to check their status, because many times it could cause a real problem with the student if they are working for a company and they are here on a student visa. The principal investigator must be primarily employed by the company, or if it's an STTR, primarily employed by either the company or the research institution that you're partnering with on the research. But and when we say primarily employed, that means they must spend at least 50 plus, more than 50%, so I think 51% or 50.5% of their time working for the company. And then lastly, all research must be performed in the US. I know that especially in medical research, now a lot of trials are happening outside the country because it's much cheaper to get human trial participants outside the US, but they will not fund any research outside the US. So the program for an SBIR, it represents 3.2% of the R&D budgets of the 12 agencies that are the largest, have the largest R&D budgets in the federal government. Okay, so here's a list of the agencies, and 3.2% of that money in today's terms, last year, that was a little about $2.5 billion that was available. So the SBIR and STTR programs are the single largest research grant programs in the world. The STTR program, the purpose is to get technology out of research institutions that are federally certified. So for example, that is universities, that is research companies such as Honeywell and the National Defense Group, or MRI Global here in Kansas City, the Danforth Science Center in St. Louis would be an example of a federally certified research institution. Many hospitals are, so here in Kansas City, Children's Mercy, Truman Medical Center, St. Luke's, KU Med, even though it's associated with the university. In St. Louis, you would be looking at Washington University, St. Louis University, and there's probably some other research institutions there that I just can't remember off the top of my head. But they have to be federally certified research institutions. So the idea is to foster that technology transfer from those research institutions to a small business that can then help to commercialize that technology. And so it is required as part of the STTR program that the small business participate in the grant together with a federally certified research organization. The STTR program is only available in 5 agencies, and it represents about a little bit less than 0.5% of those 5 agencies. So there's less money available in the STTR program. And also as a consequence, you will see when you start looking at the solicitations that the amount of money available then for the grant is slightly less in the STTR program. So that's because there's just less money available overall. So by agency, when we look at all the funds, of course, the big Megillah is the Department of Defense. So of all SBIR and STTR spending, the Department of Defense makes up a little bit more than half of that. Secondly is Health and Human Services. And by the way, this makes sense because when you just look at their overall budgets, DOD and HHS are the 2 largest agencies in the federal government. So, but HHS, Health and Human Services, includes NIH, National Institutes of Health, Center for Disease Control, the FDA, and ACF. So that would be a total of all of them. If you look at the HHS spending, the majority of that is in NIH grants. Then the next largest is NASA, followed by NSF, National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, and then all the other agencies make up only 3% of the total SBIR funding. And again, you will notice that they will have smaller amounts available in grants. So why should I even do this? Well, you know, typically if you're going to start a business, you're basically either going to bootstrap it, meaning it's coming from your own savings, your credit card bills, your you know, loans from the bank or whatever, from your friends and families, from getting loans, from getting equity investors. But in all those cases, with the exception of bootstrapping, you may not need to pay yourself back. But in the other instances, you are all, either someone is owning a piece of your company, or you are needing to pay them back for that investment, so, or that loan. So the great thing about an SBIR STTR is it requires no personal financial investment, no repayment, and no dilution of equity in your company. In fact, there is no equity taken from your company for an SBIR STTR grant, okay? So no repayments required. The company retains the ownership of the intellectual property. Now, there are some rights that the federal government wants in return for giving you that huge sum of money, but you retain ownership of the intellectual property. And the great thing is that frequently people get federal contracts when they have had gone through and received a phase 1 and phase 2 SBIR grant. And then lastly, if you are going to go for subsequent funding to the private equity market, someone who's received an SBIR or STTR grant is viewed then as already having been vetted by the scientific community. So if you've received a grant, the viewpoint in the investment community is, wow, they know what they're doing. And so I can assume that what they say, their technology, is credible. So it's a 3-phase program, okay? Phase 1 is proof of concept and feasibility, okay? Generally, and again, this is different. You'll find the big thing here is everything is different by agency and even within the agency. There generally awards are anywhere from $100,000, $150,000 up to around $260,000. Right now, the NSF maximum award is $256,000, and I think the NIH one is right around that same number. But there also can be waivers. So for example, I have a client who is doing pharmaceutical research and their phase 1 SBIR was $400,000 in funding. So phase 1 is about 6 months. Again, the purpose is to prove that your idea works. It's proof of concept feasibility study. If it's an STTR, you have 12 months to spend the money. Then once you've received a phase 1, you can then apply for phase 2. Now, I will say that in many instances, agencies want to invite you to apply for phase 2. If they aren't happy with the phase 1 performance, then they'll sort of send you a message that you really don't need to apply for phase 2. But you will know if they want you to apply for phase 2. They'll be very vocal about it. And that award guideline is a lot more money because it is a 2-year program. And this is to get you from your proof of concept, from your concept, maybe a basic, you may not even have a prototype when you go to phase 2, to a full ready for commercialization prototype, okay? So it varies by agency, $1 million. I've seen a couple that were $700,000, up to $2 million or more with the waiver. Again, using that client who's doing pharmaceutical research, if they get a phase 2, that's going to be $4 million because it costs a lot of money to commercialize a drug, to do drug research. So again, that's phase 2. Then phase 3 is what we call commercialization. Now, the idea is that you would use non-SBIR, STTR funds and get subsequent investment to actually commercialize your idea and begin selling it. But the great thing is that many agencies, especially Department of Defense and NASA, offer federal contracts in phase 3. And if they do, that is stated up front in the solicitation. So you will know that that is a potential. In fact, NASA even has a thing called phase 2X or 2A, and they also have 2A, phase 2A, phase 2X, which also is a federal contract. So again, it differs by agency, but there is that potential that after phase 3, if you complete that satisfactorily and the agency is really, really pleased, you might get a federal contract in phase 3. Okay, so how does it work? Most important thing to remember, every agency is different. Everything they release is different, even within some agencies. So within the Department of Defense, especially, the Army and the Air Force and DARPA, they are totally different from each other. So it's really important that you become familiar with what you're applying for. So you need to look up the solicitation. You need to read about the topics. You need to read about the registration requirements. So in order to apply for an SBIR or STTR, you have to be registered on SAM. You have to have a DUNS number, and there are other different registrations. They're different by agency. Where can you get this information? You get this information on the either SBIR.gov or on each agency's SBIR website. All the solicitations are published. It is public record, and so you can find them all online. Some of them are quite voluminous. If you look at the topics alone in NIH, that's usually a 200-page document. So because there are a whole bunch of different institutes within NIH. But you just look for that information, and there will actually at the SBIR week on the Monday morning presentations typically have information about how to go about and find an SBIR solicitation. Also, we offer that information I'll give you at the end of the presentation. You can sign up for our SBIR workshop, which we take people through and teach you how to do that. So the whole process is different. Even the deadlines are different by agency. So the first thing you need to do is determine to which agency you want to apply. You need to learn and adhere to their requirements, and then submit a proposal that meets their needs. Not all agencies see all technology the same way. So you need to understand what the agency needs. But remember, every agency expects an outcome from the R&D and a progress towards commercialization, okay? Again, this is not the same as academic research. Your goal must be to commercialize, not just to learn, okay? So, quad charts. Okay, so what is a quad chart? It's a one-page document, and the purpose is to help you quickly and succinctly explain your idea and about your company to an agency representative. Now, let me say, I say through all here, I call them agency representatives. The other thing that's kind of funky is that every agency has a different title for these people. So I frequently use the title program officer, and they are called all different kinds of things. But agency representative is the easy way to say it, and it covers everybody when I'm talking about this presentation. But you'll be able to see what that person is called when you get into the information about the agency. Also, putting your information into this template format makes it way easier for the representative to read what you have and compare it to others. So remember, they are looking at literally thousands of ideas. So if we can organize things in a similar way across all those ideas, then it makes it much easier for them to understand it. So that's why they ask that you use this template. Fill it in to the best of your ability. If you don't have all the answers, that's okay. It's totally fine to leave something blank. Remember, you're a startup in many cases. Some of you may be from companies that have been more established, and some of you may have even gotten and had an SBIR award before. But my guess is most of you are startups and this is your first time through. It's a-okay. They understand that startups don't have all the answers. All you have to do is insert the content into the template and save it. And it's right here, an example of it is right here in this presentation, okay? And you can find it online, not difficult to do. If you need me to, email me. My email will be at the end here and I'll send it to you. Very easy to find. Be concise. Do not make this template go more than one page. It's a PowerPoint slide, right? So don't make it longer. They only want it to be one page. So don't try to make it bigger. I've had people that try to do that. They don't like that, okay? So just make it one page. Follow, state, write only what fits into the box, okay? Make sure your information is non-proprietary. Even if you have applied for a patent at this stage, not appropriate to talk about your most secret information, okay? So keep it at the non-proprietary level. Of course, when you fill out an SBIR proposal, you will need to reveal confidential information, and that's all then covered by confidentiality agreements. If you're meeting with the Department of Defense, you will need to know your technology readiness level. It's also called a TRL. And you'll need to include that on your quad chart. There's a little link here. And if you go there, there is a list of the technology readiness levels and a description of each one. So you choose the one that you think applies to your company. Okay, so here's what, pardon me, the template looks like. In order to sign up and get an appointment with an agency rep here at SBIR Week, you must complete and submit this template by October 15th. That's the deadline for being able to get an appointment. Sooner is better. If you have not signed up, go ahead, because frequently all their appointments will book up. So if you haven't scheduled your appointment now, then get your quad chart done and go in so you can get an appointment as soon as possible, okay? So they call it a quad chart because it has 4 quadrants, okay? So upper left is technology development, then company introduction, then research need, then opportunity, okay? Those are the 4 quadrants. So that's why it's called a quad chart. So here's an example of what one filled out looks like, and we're gonna walk through each quadrant to talk about it in a little bit more detail. So as you can see, it's very brief, it's very succinct, and very to the point, and that's what they want, okay? If you submit an SBIR proposal, you will have pages and pages and pages in which to explain in detail your technology and your market opportunity, okay? But not now. Now this is about being concise, succinct, and to the point, because you only have 15 minutes to talk to your agency representative. So you want them to be able to get the gist of what you're going to talk about really quickly. And by the way, they will have read this before you meet with them. So you do not have to repeat it. Again, you do not have to read through this when you meet with them, okay? They will have already read it and they will have it in front of them for your online discussion. Okay, so, and here's what it looks like if it's all filled out. Okay, so let's start by quadrant, the technology development quadrant. It's in the upper left-hand corner. Okay, so you start out under the subhead technology research and overview. What you do is provide a brief description of your technology. This is really important. You've got to include how it is innovative and unique compared to other current alternatives. That's really important because remember, this is all about innovation, okay? On the intellectual property part, all you have to do is say how many patents you have, or if you have a provisional patent application submitted. If you don't have any yet, just note that you plan to apply, or if you're not going to apply for a patent and you plan to protect your IP by trade secret, then note that. But it's basically a very simple answer. Stage of development, describe the stage. Describe that in your words. Is this at the basic research level? Have you already done preliminary research and this is now getting you proving your concept? What basic stage are you at? But you don't have to elaborate for a lot. Just, where am I in my development? And then what is your value proposition? Your value proposition is why a customer would buy your product, okay? So what that means is, what does it do? What is the benefit or the result of using your product? That's what the value proposition is, okay? So here's our example, all right? So this is about a technology that is a method to reduce triglycerides using a stem cell technology platform, okay? So this is in some way using stem cells to reduce triglycerides, improve glucose tolerance, and reduce weight, okay? So that's the simple way that it was set, okay? 2 issued patents and 1 patent pending. It's in the basic research stage. And here's the value proposition. Reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease for those that cannot treat this symptom with exercise alone, okay? So this is a medication, a new medication. Okay, so then, now the company introduction quadrant, that's in the upper right-hand corner. So they ask for your mission. So if you haven't developed a company mission, and believe me, there are lots of startups who haven't yet, not to worry. What you just talk about is, what's the purpose of your company? What do you want to accomplish? Okay, that's really what you want to say. Again, briefly, not long. Just put the date of your founding, list the number of employees, and don't worry if you are the only employee or you and your co-founder are the only employee. Many, many, many early stage companies only have 1 or 2 employees. That's not an issue. You will use, if you are rewarded or awarded the grant, you'll use that funding to hire more people to conduct the research. So don't worry about that, but it's how many employees you have today. Describe your facilities, okay? So do you have lab space? Are you renting it from a university or from a co-working space? If you are an all digital product, don't be concerned if you don't have lab space. They understand that people who are doing digital work from their kitchen table, okay? So it's a-okay. If that's the case, then I would say, mine is a totally digital product. I have the full computer, all the computer equipment that is needed, in in my office in order to do this, right? So that's all you have to say. Product sales, okay? You want to state your company's total annual revenue history for the last 3 years, okay? So total annual revenue, not profit, revenue, okay? That means how much you get from selling, the dollars you get from selling. If you don't have any revenue, write none to date. Again, most startups have no revenue at an early stage, so it's not a problem, okay? But if you're already in business and already have some revenue, that's great. And when we talk about revenue, we're talking about for your company, not just for this product, okay? Then the company introduction, okay? Example. So their mission is to improve patient outcomes by transforming great science into actionable solutions for the treatment of metabolic disease. Okay, so what does that tell you? That tells you that they're really focusing on the metabolic disease issues. They're not going to go cure cancer. They're not going to address coronavirus. They're not going to do other things. The space that they're going to operate in is metabolic disease. And that's one of the reasons why they want to know about your mission, right? They want to know sort of the market space, the industry space, the technology space that you see yourselves occupying. It shows the founding date. It shows the number of employees. In this case, they're renting a lab probably from the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and they don't have any sales today. Next is the research need. This is a pretty important section because you're going to state what you're going to use the funding for. And you're going to talk a little bit about your primary research goals and really importantly, how your approach is different than research that's been done before, right? Is there a different angle that you're taking? Is there a different way that you are thinking about doing this that would get you to a different result, right? And something that's really innovative. And you want to identify any technical hurdles that still must be overcome. Again, all this is very succinctly. You're going to have lots of deep chance to go into detail. Don't go down a technical rabbit hole, okay? Very, very top level. So here's an example. They're seeking the funding to test the platform on diabetes, high blood pressure, and abnormal cholesterol levels, okay? They're going to do some animal studies, and they're not going to do any human studies until phase 2, okay? And what they're going to do the animal studies on is high-fat diet-fed mice, okay? And their research goals are to reduce show reduction in triglyceride levels, glucose tolerance, and reduce weight in those mice, okay? That's how they're going to prove their concept. Now then, the opportunity quadrant, which is in the lower right, this is where you talk about the business side, okay? First of all, what is the customer need, okay? What is it that the problem or the opportunity that your technology addresses? And quantify the size of that need. So how many people, how many businesses or whatever have that need, okay? Quantification is really important. If you don't know what that is, then here's how to find it. You need to do some searching online. But that is only as good as Google is. If you do not have a membership in either an academic library or in your local city library, I urge you to get a card. And I know in St. Louis and Kansas City, in St. Louis, it's the St. Louis Public Library. In Kansas City, the best place to go is the Mid-Continent Public Library System, because I know in St. Louis and at Mid-Continent, they have really terrific business reference librarians. And their whole purpose is to help people find business information. And they subscribe, and many of your other libraries will as well, as will academic libraries, subscribe to databases that have a lot more information about market information than you can find if you just Google it on Google, right? So, so that is your great source. And those, if you go to one of those libraries that have a business reference librarian, they can actually point you in the right direction and help you in your search to identify. So if you, so for example, if you have a technology and you don't know that much about, you know that a certain group would, let's say that this is a business to business technology and there's a certain kind of manufacturing that would employ that. Well, all you got to do is go look in thomas.net, the Thomas Register, to find out about how many of those manufacturers there are in the country. And you could go to your library and they could even give you some examples of those manufacturers and give you more information. So that's when we talk about quantifying the size, that's what we're talking about. You know, there's a big difference if I have 2 potential customers or if I have 2 million potential customers, okay? So, and SBIR is interested in substantial businesses, okay? Next is the target customer, okay? So use demographics, statistics, psychographics, if possible, to describe them. Where do you get that information? Again, online, okay? You can find that through your libraries. These business reference librarians will be glad to help you find that, okay? So, and there are some good sources, Statista, Reference USA, those kinds of things, where those databases where you can find lots of information about your customer, okay? Then the market opportunity. You want to describe the benefit of your product in the marketplace. And this is important. You want to compare it to direct competitors and currently available solutions. And you want to say how yours is unique or superior, okay? So let's look at the example. So this describes the need or the problem for metabolic syndrome. It's saying it's a significant risk factor, and 30% of the people in the US have metabolic syndrome, focused especially on those aged 40 to 60. 40% of those aged 40 to 60 have this problem, okay? So who's my target customer? It's going to be overweight adults aged 40 plus. That's the core focus of who would be interested in taking medication to resolve metabolic syndrome, okay? Market opportunity is, again, to reduce the risk of stroke or heart attack by reducing weight, triglyceride levels, and glucose. Guess what? In this instance, there's no solution that both promotes weight loss and reduces triglycerides in a medication, okay? So what did that just say? It just said basically there is no direct similar competition today in the marketplace. My technology is going to be unique, okay? So that's how you fill out your quad chart. Now your one-on-one meeting, okay? So each agency, again, has a representative that is the liaison with the applicants. They essentially manage the SBIR process for their topic area within the agency. They know a lot of information about the agency and its research needs. Frequently, usually, they actually wrote the topic that you are responsible for the area that the agency wants to fund. So they really, really know what they're talking about and what the agency is looking for. So remember I told you they have different titles. It's things like program officer. If you're in the Department of Defense, it's the technical point of contact, otherwise known as the TPC. Topic author, all those kinds of titles are what they have. The reason why you want to meet with them is to gain insights about the topic for which you're applying, to get feedback on whether or not your idea is a good fit for the topic in the agency. If it's not a good fit, they won't fund you, right? So you want to know, are you a good fit? And you also want to familiarize them with you and your venture. It's important to build a relationship with these people. They do have input on whether or not you get a grant or not. So meeting them and letting them know who you are. And then as time goes on, there are different rules about contacting but when it is appropriate and when the rules allow to contact them, it's a good thing to build that relationship with the agency representative. So again, your quad chart must be submitted no later than October 15th for this appointment. But you can use this quad chart subsequently to meet with other, when you're meeting with an agency rep. So the agency rep you meet with at SBIR week may not be the technical point of contact or the topic author or the program officer for the topic that you are interested in. So there may be yet another person that you'll want to meet with and set up a phone conversation or a Zoom call with once you are ready to apply for the SBIR. There's a strict time limit at SBIR week. Show up on time and be on time, okay? They do not like it. If you are late, you will look bad. So be on time, okay? Also, do not try to string out the appointment longer. You only have 15 minutes. Other people are following you. If they say it's time to end, it's time to end. Don't say, just one more question, right? It's time to end, okay? Be prepared for the meeting. Know what solicitation and topic you are interested in. Have that at hand. Have the number and the topic name at hand when you're ready for the discussion. Pardon me. Be able to explain succinctly why you're interested in that solicitation or topic and what capabilities your company has that have direct relevance to that topic, okay? Why should they fund you, essentially? Why are you a good fit, okay? And develop a list of 5 to 10 relevant questions that you'd like the representative to answer about the agency's needs regarding the topic. Remember, this is just like interviewing a customer, right? You want to find out what their needs are. This is not about what your needs. The government is only going to fund ideas that fit with their needs, okay? They're not just here to just give money to anybody who wants it. It's only about fitting with their needs. So you want to use this time to learn about their needs. There are several online tutorials and webinars that can really help you to prepare. Highly recommend these top 2 here about finding topics that will help you to learn how to search with your solicitation and find topics. And then also the individual agency requirements. If you're going to meet with NASA, you need to know what NASA expects, right? If you're going to meet with the Air Force, you need to know what the Air Force expects. So on the tutorials, there are great summaries of each agency that can give you very quickly a good flavor for what they're looking for how they operate and what's important to them. So those are really, really good, okay? Then when you get to the meeting, you want to start out by briefly introducing yourself and tell a little bit about your research interests, okay? But this is not, a 5-page resume, right? This is not your curriculum vitae. This is just a couple of sentences about who I am and what my research interests are, okay? Obviously, if they ask you a following question, you can elaborate, right? But be succinct. Then you want to get information and feedback from the agency. Ask your question and then listen, okay? Don't monopolize the conversation. You want at least half of the talking in your conversation to be done by the agency rep. Otherwise, you're not going to learn what you need to learn, okay? You're not going to have the information you need to help develop a really strong proposal, okay? They're going to read your quad chart, so don't waste time by repeating it during the meeting, okay? And respond succinctly when they ask you a question. They're going to ask you lots of questions. Don't go down technical rabbit holes. Again, if you're, for example, if you're with applying to NSF, you're going to have, 6 pages to write all the technical information. So now is not the time. Be succinct and top level. Here are the things to ask. First of all, ask them based on the quad chart, because they will have just read that and it's in front of them. Does your innovation match the agency's goals for the topic? Okay. If they say it does, then you want to ask them, what are the agency priorities for the topic? Okay. If what you're doing is not in their priorities, then you need to ask, how can I make it that, right? What about my idea do I need to change? Or what about do I need to say in the proposal that would relate more to your priorities, okay? Have there been any changes since the topic was authored that you should know about? Because that does happen sometimes, okay? What are the most relevant applications for your innovation within the agency? It can be that it could be used in multiple places within the agency. So you want to know that because you want to then address that in your proposal. If they say, no, you're not a fit, that is also really important because who wants to spend weeks, months, and hundreds of hours developing a proposal that's going to go nowhere, okay? You also, though, want to know, is there another place I could submit? So if it doesn't fit with this topic, is there another one for which it would be a better fit? Or even, is there another agency for which it would be a better fit? Okay. You want to ask them if they have any suggested next steps. You will find frequently that they can make comments like, you don't want to do this kind of research. You don't want to use this kind of test methodology. We want to see X. I mean, they have information that they can give you that will really help you. So that's why you want to ask any suggested next steps, and you want to ask, are there any washouts or frequent mistakes that you should be aware of? Okay, especially as a first-time applicant, it's easy to make mistakes, and they know that, oh, 90% of the time when people apply to this agency, they do this and we don't like it. So you want to ask them that kind of information. Okay, so then information assistance. So first of all, the schedule for SBIR week. The events on Monday and Tuesday are really great information for you. So from 9 to 2 on Monday, there will be information there about pulling your proposal together. That is, those sessions are usually really, really good, and I highly encourage you to go. And then the Missouri SBDC is presenting 3 other webinars. So there's a funding panel with investors, and that should be really terrific. So these are investors who are looking to invest in technology-based businesses. So it'll be the things that they look for. We have a panel of awardees on Tuesday morning to talk about their experiences and give hints and suggestions. That is always really, really a terrific session. And then we have a session about how to develop your value proposition. That's really important. It guides your business and it should guide your research as well, okay? And then on Wednesday, again, is when the one-on-one appointments are. You need to register by October 15th. And if you sooner, the better, okay? And you must have your quad chart to register. Then, again, the tutorials. The SBIR tutorials are excellent, really excellent. This is the website where you find all of them. They are in audio, visual, and PDF formats. There's glossaries for all the terms. There are a multitude of tutorials about everything from how to find a topic to the different kinds of agencies to the different sections of the proposal. I mean, there's just a wealth of information and they're really excellent. So use those. Next, there's some other resources. So I encourage anyone who's embarking on an SBIR proposal to get help, especially if this is the first time you're doing it. But I would get help anyway. I mean, because I regularly work with people who are working on phase 2 who are working on their 2nd or 3rd phase 1 proposal. So get help. And the reason is that these documents are so enormous and there's so much thinking behind that goes into it. It's really hard to do just on your own. And there are people, my colleagues here at the SBDC, both in Missouri and in the other states, have a lot of experience with SBIRs. We know a lot of the rules of the road. We've worked with many of them, and I think we can really assist you in making the process more smooth, helping to answer questions, even helping you with language and editing of your proposals. So it's really, really worthwhile to get help. The other thing is when you go to the SBDC, because we are your taxpayer dollars at work, we're funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration, you don't pay us. If you were to get our services and pay from one of the SBIR organizations that does consulting, you find them on the internet, you'd be paying $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, okay? And we're at no additional cost because you already paid for us on April 15th when you filed your taxes. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you don't know the SBIR organization in your area or close to you, my email is at the end. Reach out to me and I'll be glad to help you find that. We do offer at the UMKC, we offer it to anyone in the state of Missouri. And if you are on our call today and you're not from Missouri, that's a-okay. We offer an online workshop called the SBIR workshop. The next one, we do it once a quarter. The next one is on November 19th. We also have one in January. I think it's January 28th. Here is the link to register for it. And so it's a 2.5-hour workshop where we go through all the basics, how to find a proposal. We give you tips about how to approach writing, all those sorts of things. So if you want more information, we'd love to have you simply go to the link, use the link here, and you can go and register. Biggest source of information online is SBIR.gov, okay? That has links to every agency's individual websites, that has all kinds of frequently asked questions, has all kinds of information, and shows all the proposals and solicitations, okay? Sorry, excuse me, solicitations, not proposals. So that is a key resource for you. The other thing is if you want to learn about cooperative technology, go to ssti.org. There's also lots of opportunities there to link. Okay, we talked about the SBDC assisting you. We can help you determine if your idea is eligible, again, give you some guidance during the process. And frequently we find that researchers need connections to other key individuals, and perhaps they aren't connected. So we can help you find key personnel. Lots of times people are looking for principal investigators or researchers, technical assistants. They need facilities. They need to find a lab space to rent, CRO, that sort of thing. They need to have connections to universities, that sort of thing. So we can help connect you to all those kinds of individuals. And then we can also help review your proposals and make recommendations. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for viewing the webinar. We're going to end our recording now and